courtyard is the copper altar. This was made of acacia wood covered in copper, and inside was the eternal fire. God was the one who started the fire when they first built the tabernacle, but it was called the eternal fire because they were never allowed to let it burn out. They always had to go out and find wood and fuel to make sure the fire kept burning continuously. And this is where they made many sacrifices, many different types of sacrifices with different meanings and reasons and ceremonies and events, which I'm not going to get into all of them right now, but I will talk about the most important sacrifice, which was called the atonement sacrifice or the sin sacrifice. It was the only one of all the sacrifices that only the high priest was allowed to make. All the other sacrifices could be performed by the regular priest, but the sacrifice whose purpose was to atone and cover the sins of Israel could only be done by the high priest. If you follow me over here behind the altar was copper wash basin.
Get some water and make music.
Yeah.
Tibetan,
I've never tried that.
Tibetan bowl.
That'd be pretty cool. So, the copper wash base is probably the least talked about item when people talk about the tabernacle, but for me personally, this is probably one of the most fascinating items. This is the only thing that God did not give any instructions for the dimensions. So the Bible does not list any measurements, not the shape or size or weight. We don't know if it was wider or taller or maybe a square. We don't know. But what we do know is that it was made of pure copper and that it was made from the mirrors of the women. Women that donated their mirrors, polished copper to make the wash base. So the priests, when they looked in here, they probably saw their own reflection in the wash base. They did not wash their hands like this because then it would have filled up with blood and dirt, but rather they would have taken the water outside with bowls and would have washed their hands and their feet outside the wash base. They had to do that before offering a sacrifice or before going into the tent. This represents purification. We need to be purified before we can come to God. But if that's the case, then why wouldn't this be the first thing that we see when coming into the courtyard? Why would God command them to place first the altar and then the wash base? Any ideas?
Blood, sin,
Yes,
purification.
exactly. We cannot be purified without there being a sacrifice first. We cannot be purified without there being spilling of blood first. That's how this shows, that's one way, one of many ways how this shows the salvation plan of God. It's like an image of the process of salvation. That it's through the sacrifice that we are purified, and then we can go into the presence of God.
Can you tell us about the horns?
Yes, so the horns, the altar had 4 horns, one on each corner, that were covered in blood from the sacrifices. The horns at the inner altar, which we'll see soon, also had blood, but only once a year from the sin sacrifice. If anyone killed someone by accident or was accused of murder, they could run in and grab the horns of the altar. And as long as he was touching the horns of the altar, no one was allowed to touch him or hurt him or kill him until the high priest came, investigated, and decided if he was innocent or guilty.
What horn is it? Is it ram's horn?
We don't know actually exactly. The Bible doesn't say just as 4 horns, one on each corner. We don't know if that means a real animal horn that was covered in copper, or if it was just a fake copper horn. We don't know how big they were, or if they were curved or straight. The Hebrew word horns also could just simply mean a protrusion from the corners. So we don't know exactly what it means.
The horns of salvation?
Yeah, maybe, yeah. So, if we go over to this side, you can come stand in the shade. And I'll explain a little bit about the logistics of the tabernacle. explain further.